Fanatics also reported a 100% increase in sales for WNBA specific merchandise. It started with Caitlin Clark. And so now that we know all of this, and we've known that for months, now we get to turn around and look and see what exactly is it that the league will do knowing that she's out for the next 2 weeks. I'm not saying I know for sure what's going to happen, but I have an idea.
The WNBA allowed this to happen just when you thought they were finally figuring things out and were prepared to ride the golden wave of Caitlin Clark all the way to the promised land of popular significance and financial success. And I'm referring about the injury that has every basketball fan, sports expert, and yes, even Stephen Smith, completely inconsolable.
Unfortunately, though, the celebration in the WNBA, it was cut short yesterday afternoon as WNBA players learned the harsh lesson: be careful what you wish for. Headline at the New York Post: Caitlin Clark sidelined with Indiana Felines announcing shock injury. Keyword: shock. This injury was shocking, but not for reasons that you may think.
With a left quad strain, Caitlin Clark, the lady who single-handedly transformed women's basketball from a niche sport their cousin who is crazy with the game watches into an appointment television show that has people canceling dinner reservations, is currently sitting on the sidelines. They say at least 2 weeks. The WNBA has been feigning for 2 weeks that losing their biggest star, their golden goose, and their actual ratings magnet won't cause their viewership numbers to plummet like a house of cards during a hurricane.
Everybody was moving Caitlin Clark games to bigger facilities because everyone was selling tickets. There were ratings. It was a ratings bonanza. Now with Caitlin Clark not playing, what do? Well, when you change your situs, guess what? You can't change it back.
Yep.
All
the tickets are literally half the price, and there are entire sections of the stadium that have not sold any tickets.
And who was the first to completely lose it over this? It was none other than Stephen A. Smith, who has been standing up for Caitlin Clark since the beginning, when half of the WNBA establishment pretended that she was a basketball tourist who had wandered into their league by mistake.
Thanks to Clark, Indiana led the league in attendance both at home and on the road. The Fever averaged 17,035 fans at home and over 15,000 on the road. 4 teams moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. That's about Caitlin Clark. How do we know this? Attendance for the entire league was up nearly 50% last year. According to data from across the timeline, and Indiana led all teams with an average attendance of 17,035. That was up 319% from the year earlier.
Stephen made more than one remark about this injury. He completely lost it. And to be honest, it's about time someone did, because Stephen is out here stating facts that would make a mathematician cry with joy, while everyone else is avoiding the obvious in an attempt to be politically correct and act as though Caitlin Clark isn't actually carrying this league on her back. We'll discover. When asked how large of a blow Clark's injury is to the WNBA, Stephen responded, "We don't know yet. However, I'm going to be extremely curious to watch how this affects the WNBA's numbers, because if there's a sharp decline, then everyone must take a back seat."
We'll find out. We don't know yet, but I'm going to be really, really interested in seeing, Molly, what kind of effect this has on the WNBA's ratings, because if for some reason there is a precipitous drop-off, then everybody needs to stand down and recognize the fact that the speculation or the assertions and assumptions about her being the golden goose is validated.
If you're having fun, please subscribe. Oh, Stephen, you are a lovely, brilliant, logical being. Because the man is essentially sitting there with a stopwatch waiting to record the precise minute the WNBA recognizes they've been undervaluing their most important asset. Isn't that what's going to happen? It's like listening to someone whine about being broke while ignoring a pot of wealth. And the man shouting, "The gold is right there," is Stephen. Let's take a moment to discuss numbers, since it seems like certain WNBA front office staff members need a reality check and a calculator. This season, Games with Caitlin Clark have averaged 1.178 million viewers, while those without her have only attracted 394,000. That's more than just a distinction. That gap of 199% is so large that a freight train might pass through it. To put this into context, Clark's games attract 3 times as many viewers as those without her, even for the most mathematically impaired sports executive. 3 times.
Became the first rookie with at least 25 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds in a playoff game. That was Caitlin Clark. Became the 4th different rookie to play all 40 minutes in a playoff game. That was her. I'm looking at other things. 6 different league television partners. This is last year. This is last season, because this is Caitlin Clark that we're talking about. 6 different league television partners set viewership records that year, her rookie year, for its highest viewed WNBA game. Do you know every one of those games, including the Indiana Fever?
But people, this is when things get very hot. Not all of Stephen Smith's grief stems from the injuries. He has spent months preparing for this moment. This man has witnessed the WNBA fumble in its attempts to manage its biggest star. He has witnessed the league's leadership, including Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, respond ambivalently when they ought to have been organizing ticker tape parades. And he has witnessed legendary players like Cheryl Swoops acting more like Clark was an intruder than the much-needed savior. Now that Clark is hurt, Stephen is basically screaming, "I told you so," in the most dramatic manner imaginable. Acknowledge that the rumors, claims, and presumptions that she is the golden goose have been confirmed. Stephen went on, and you will know that you ride that wave if that occurs.
Tide lifts all boats. And if this is the magnetic traction that draws viewers to the WNBA, and her absence over the next 2 weeks due to that quad strain is providing further evidence of that, then everybody needs to accept it, stand down, and ride that wave. I'm going to be really interested in seeing how the ratings are going to look without her over the next 2 weeks. Let's make sure we come back and ask me this exact same question after she's been gone for those 2 weeks.
Yes, let's take a quick look back and discuss how we got here. Caitlin Clark became a one-woman economic stimulus package after joining the WNBA. The most-watched WNBA game on ESPN channels ever, the season opener between Clark's Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky, attracted 2.7 million people on ABC. That number is not just remarkable, but almost miraculous for a league that has been struggling for relevancy for more than 20 years. Here's the kicker, though. Rather of the WNBA brass swooning and giving thanks to whatever basketball gods gave them this gift, we received this instead. In different press releases and generic social media content, they seemed ashamed of their own accomplishments. Too afraid to acknowledge that a single player might have such a significant impact. This was witnessed in real time by Stephen A. Smith, who had been gradually building to a raging outburst of annoyance. He has seen Clark break attendance records, fill venues, and ultimately bring the WNBA into the public eye, while some players and commentators pretended she wasn't deserving of the spotlight.
We know what she brings to the table, but people wanted to hate because why? You had a bunch of players in this league that watched this young white girl come along and take the league by storm, and they resented it because they saw the marketing prowess that she had. They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because of this girl. Instead, they resented it because they said, yo, we were doing stuff long before Caitlin Clark got here, and y'all wasn't paying attention then. But now the young white girl comes along and y'all want to sit up there and shower all of this praise and all of this attention that was earned before she ever came along. The resentment is understandable, but it's not about Caitlin Clark. It's about what she represents. My point is, grow up.
Rather than applauding the rising tide that was lifting all boats, the man has been defending Clark from detractors who are more concerned with preserving their own egos. Stephen was there to call it out when former WNBA players began making fun of each other and behaving resentful rather than appreciative. Stephen made reference to Clark's outspoken detractors when he added, "They act like there isn't or hasn't been legitimate resentment." However, nobody is duped here. And since Clark isn't simply missing any previous games, we can now watch Stephen's forecast come to life in real time. The premier matchups that were meant to be television gold are lacking her. The much-awaited rematch between the Chicago Sky and Angel Ree is no longer happening. Networks were relying on a number of nationally broadcast games to boost numbers. Proof upon further consideration, the financial ramifications are astounding. In addition to losing their top player, the Indiana Fever are also losing their main source of income. Clark is more than simply the team's top scorer and assist provider. People literally buy tickets, watch television, and buy stuff because of her. Without her, the Fever would just be another WNBA club that most casual fans couldn't choose from a lineup, rather than being a must-watch TV show. C.I.
Look, I think Stephen A is 100% correct on this. At the end of the day, you already see people actually saying, hey, I'm not watching for 2 weeks. I'm not tuning in for 2 weeks. And it's really bad news for the Mystics and the Sky, because both of those teams moved those games to big arenas. So it's like, now that she's not playing, what is that attendance going to look like? The viewership, right? The viewership is going to plummet. I already know. Because the majority of the people that's watching the Indiana Fever wants to see Caitlin Clark. And sad to say it, a lot of them only want to see Caitlin Clark. They don't really care about the entire team.
However, this is where Steven's annoyance truly gets out of control. All of this could have been avoided. Not the actual sports injuries do occur, but the league's total disregard for safeguarding and putting their most important asset first. Clark has been taking blows that would cause NFL defenders to flagrantly foul, play recklessly, and target recklessly during her rookie season and into the current one. And why did the WNBA act as though it was merely a part of the game? Like the rest of us, Steven has been watching this unfold and is most likely yelling at his TV. This player is genuinely changing the league's fortunes. Additionally, the WNBA allows opponents to treat her like a punching bag rather than putting her in bubble wrap and treating her like the valuable asset that she is. Corporate misconduct is what it is. Steven is aware that the numbers don't lie. Even though Clark lost against the New York Liberty in his most recent game prior to the injury, it still attracted 2.22 million people on CBS, making it the second highest watched WNBA game ever. Clark was putting up numbers that most WNBA games could only hope to reach, even in a tight loss.
The Fever and the Liberty, peaking at 3.2 million viewers. 3.2. And again, second most viewed game on CBS ever.
Now picture the same periods of time without Clark. Consider attempting to explain to television executives the reason behind the recent 200% decline in ratings. Consider attempting to persuade sponsors that the WNBA is still worthwhile when their main attraction is sitting on the bench in shabby clothes. Steven doesn't need to think about it. He's going to watch it happen and record every agonizing dip in ratings with the joy of a man who has been proven correct about everything he's been saying for months. But this is the part that has Steven furious. If the WNBA had simply listened, this could have been prevented. Instead of attempting to minimize her influence, they should have safeguarded Clark like the transcendent star she is, promoted her more actively, and recognized her contributions rather than pretending that her success was a coincidence. The Clark impact extends beyond single games. It concerns the whole women's basketball ecology. People who had never followed the WNBA before suddenly become engrossed when she performs. When she gets hurt, those same individuals will stop paying attention more quickly than you can say quad strain, and it will be nearly impossible to get them back after they're gone.
Literally cannot make this up. When she's not playing, ticket prices, merchandise sales plummet. Viewership declines when she is not suited up in uniform. The numbers do not lie, guys. Caitlin Clark is the biggest box office attraction in the WNBA, period. Facts over feelings.
Steven sees the wider picture and comprehends this in a manner that the WNBA leadership doesn't seem to. Clark is more than just a sportsman. She is a sensation. She serves as a link between the WNBA's possible future success and its previous setbacks. Additionally, the league is now stranded on the edge of irrelevance, as that bridge is currently closed for repairs. The most frustrating thing is that this was all expected. When a player generates viewership comparable to NBA games and someone single-handedly transforms the discourse surrounding women's basketball, you safeguard that investment. You don't let opponents to grab, hack, and commit blatant fouls without facing harsh repercussions. You don't treat your golden goose like any other player, but the WNBA did just that. Now, Steven is sitting there saying, "I told you so," which will reverberate for weeks because when the viewership figures for games without Clark drop back to what they were before Clark, it was completely anticipated and preventable, and Steven will be the first to point that out. The story is already being told by the fan response. Millions of WNBA fans who first became interested in the league because of Clark are already discussing skipping games till she comes back. Fans are expressing on social media that they won't watch subpar basketball without the player who initially inspired them to follow the game.
I mean, with Caitlin Clark being out of the picture, you know what's already happened in the WNBA? Yeah, that's right. Those ticket prices went way down. And you would think most of the ladies in the league would want to wish Caitlin a very speedy and successful recovery, because without her in that league, it's going back to where it was before she even got drafted to the end.
Furthermore, can you really blame them if you're a casual fan who first became interested in watching because Caitlin Clark created the game appointment television? Why would you stay to watch games that make you feel as though you're watching in black and white after seeing color for the first time? Steven witnesses all of this. It's not just about one wounded player. This is about a league that had lightning in a bottle and somehow let it slip through their fingers. You can almost hear him warming up his vocal cords for the biggest "I told you so" in sports media history. In the next weeks, everything Steven has said regarding Caitlin Clark's worth to the WNBA will be put to the test. And based on all the data we have, including every recorded rating, every sold-out stadium, and every piece of evidence, Steven is going to be shown to be more correct than he likely even wants to be. Because the WNBA will have to face a reality that Stephen A. Smith has been yelling about for months when the dust settles and the data are in. They were fortunate enough to have their savior, but now they are learning what life is like without her.